This is Bob Barbas of the Raptor News Network. Just doing God's
Good morning, ma'am. And isn't it a lovely morning? Up yours, Benoit!
NANI?
What did you expect? Welcome, Sonny. Make yourself at home. Marry my daughter. You've got to remember that these are just simple farmers. These are people of the land. The common clay of the New West. You know. Morons.
So yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about how I would structure this video. It's pretty well known that DMC Devil May Cry is one of the most divisive video game reboots ever created. Many people were angry with Capcom until the release of Devil May Cry 5, which returned to the original franchise roots. And these fans went entirely wrong in their anger, since they believed this was the new direction the series was taking, had it succeeded. Look, this game was not what fans ever wanted, but that doesn't mean it was a complete abomination. I mean, DMC inadvertently gave us freaking out Dante.
Se acabó.
Nice.
¿Mi madre? No conozco mi madre, pero no eres el primero que me llama hijo de perra.
Cool, right? Okay, I'll stop there. But seriously, I've seen people even say Devil May Cry 2 was a better game, and that shit just can't slide.
What the f?
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Nothing can surpass this tragedy. In this video, I want to delve into why I think this was, believe it or not, a good game. But first, I want to make a disclaimer to those that think this was some great masterpiece, and those that think it's the worst thing to happen to video games since Babsy 3D. This video will probably not be for you, but I still appreciate it if you stick on to the end. A reboot is a tricky thing to pull off. On one hand, you have the things that entail the re-establishment of a known franchise, a thing Devil May Cry didn't really have at the time. And in the other, you have the pillars of the franchise, basically the things that make it what it is. A successful reboot brings in new practical ideas while respectfully leaving the old ones intact. Change too much and you have a new product entirely. It forces fans to adopt an entirely foreign concept into the canon. Conversely, change too little, and well, what's the point of declaring it a reboot? And it seems Capcom committed the sin of the former with DMC Devil May Cry. Ninja Theory helmed DMC and attempted to reboot the popular hack-and-slash action game series, but soon, it became a point of contention for fans. Most weren't sure that Ninja Theory had a pedigree that suggested they could design a game that would do justice by the franchise. The series has stuck to its gun for 10 years, and its success inspired the creation of other games such as Bayonetta and Metal Gear Rising. With such an innovative and successful series under Ninja Theory's care, what could have gone wrong? Apparently, a lot it turns out. The DMC reboots were surrounded by controversy long before they released it, mainly because of bad PR. There's a lot that happened during the development of the game, but I will not be covering that entire system, as other YouTubers have better videos in relation to this topic. The backlash was to be expected. Dante was a beloved character in a popular franchise that didn't require a change. In fact, Devil May Cry 4 had left the franchise with more plot points and stories left unresolved. And even though they expected this backlash, they remained adamant in their vision for this new reboot. And after the waves of controversy came from every end of the spectrum, they released DMC on 15th January 2013 to positive critical reception.
Oh hell no!
Fans still found the edgier Dante to be good in contrast to the original, and the controversy surrounding this game seemed ceaseless for years. Yet the fires calmed down.
Or does it?
2,000 years later.
Many of you might think my opinion on DMC is misguided and wrong,
Bruh.
and that's fine. We don't give a You may disagree with me, but more recent core reviews of the game proved what I already believed, and that was that DMC was actually a decent game if you took it for what it was. The hard time it got was less because of the game itself and more because they introduced it as a reboot, essentially replacing the old characters most people liked. The reception probably would not have been this bad if it were just marketed as a spin-off, an alternate version, or something else entirely. Now let me be frank about the story.
And I've got to say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit that I have ever heard.
Obviously, I'm being facetious, considering this is a video defending DMC. Yes, the dialogue of the game was without a doubt clunky in a lot of areas and abused vulgar language to appeal to an audience I still to this day have not discovered. I am, however, going to give a pretty hot take for many Devil May Cry fans. Just bear with me.
Don't you see you can make it?
I implore you to reconsider.
Okay.
DMC Devil May Cry had the most promising story out of all the games in the franchise.
I beg your pardon?
And this is still the case, although it overuses allegory, symbolism, and once again, pretty dumb dialogue.
I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I'm better looking. And I got a bigger dick.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Wow, this thing got real big. You trying to compensate for something?
Yes. Your incompetence.
This game adds a level of depth to the story that wasn't totally there before. It's had a vision and distinct themes, although it sometimes seemed like they wrote it as an emo recluse who just learned the word fox fanfic. Again, I'm being flippant. At the very least, it's better than that purely by the virtue that it has something to say and has some real valid moments. Let's be honest, Devil May Cry is not high art. It has never had the most profound stories, and most characters receive little character development. The game writers usually have Dante, for example, stay the same. Instead, his character developments happen from game to game to fit the narrative. Not that it's a bad thing. Characters had arcs to some extent that contextualize their motives and ideas, especially for the characters in Devil May Cry 5. Not to mention, Dante was already an enjoyable character that didn't really need to be changed. With DMC, Dante actually had character development, with him going from being arrogant and unlikable to a reliable character more akin to the beloved of past games. He generally had moments where he felt like Dante from the other games. Vergil, however, differed slightly from the one we see in Devil May Cry 3. Here he came off a bit like a coward sometimes, but at the end of the game and in his DLC, he became more like the character we all know. I found it really hard to enjoy Kat's growth. Her character was bland and stereotypical in design and general relevance to the story. She was just not that interesting. I will also say that the characters of Phineas and Bob Barbas were standouts for me. They both had qualities that made them very interesting. It was a concrete story with solid voice acting. Yes, it may surprise some of you to hear me say it was nothing like the disaster that is Shaq Fu. Mostly the dialogue was subpar. This is also the only Devil May Cry game that gave us a Vergil DLC where he really has an arc important to the narrative. The story here was better. We actually got to see Vergil's downfall, no pun intended, leading to his old villain rather than anti-hero arc in this reboot. I like the cutscene style change, although it took some time playing to take in their transition. Maybe the short length of the game's campaign could have affected the story and dialogue, and they forced the writers to redact the story, riddling it with plot holes to fit his playtime. We may never get an answer. This is the last thing I want to add. I actually found this funny. I saw a YouTube comment while researching this video. It relates to a specific scene with Vergil, and I'm sure a few of you can guess which one. Yes, it's the one where he deletes Lilith.
Fuck.
I'll come back to it soon enough, but here's the comment. I think most fans can agree that this is not entirely true, considering the things Vergil has done. Let's also not forget Vergil's weak pullout game. Dante wouldn't go out that sad.
Defeat!
Anyway, back to the deletion scene. Although I thought this scene to be a bit screwed, I personally do not see this action of Vergil as out of character, albeit the lack of flair. Chad Vergil would do it how real surgeons do, and that's with a goddamn summon sword. Oh yeah. It makes absolute sense that Vergil would do what he did. He didn't just snipe down some random pregnant woman. He shot Lilith, who, may I remind you, was carrying the spawn of the most dangerous demon alive, Mundus. Vergil essentially stopped the literal Antichrist from being brought into the world. Vergil being worse than Dante, and the dude with the fedora part was based though. I respect that. Gameplay is always king in the video game sphere, and the best part of DMC by far was definitely the gameplay. It has some superb combat, and they did a good job at streamlining the control system for new players of the series, such as mastering special moves to a button or giving them slightly more straightforward inputs. They even added a dedicated dodge button, both on the ground and air. The learning curve of adjusting to the controls was also less steep in DMC. As you can guess, some people were unsatisfied with the significant change to the traditional DMC controls. Dante's double trigger was okay, but was definitely leagues below those of the other games with the approach they took to it. It didn't even have staples such as the double trigger explosion. The boss fights are a mixed bag, as some were great and others were mediocre. They were mostly unpredictable and not too monotone, especially the boss battle Bob Barbas, where you get the game's most fun weapon. The difficulty was lowered to bring in more casual players, but this turned off those who enjoyed the more difficult gameplay to some extent. Even with the standard normal difficulty, you wouldn't encounter much opposition, but I didn't see this as an issue considering the different difficulty levels available. There are around 7 or 9 if I'm correct. Even though the game is easy on the surface, it contains a surprising amount of variety in combat, such as Dante being able to attack an enemy or a group of enemies with several weapons, one right after the other in one combo. This is simpler than in previous games and immensely satisfying to pull off, but you would require some skill. The replayability was also there, as you could play different difficulty modes, allowing you to choose which missions you want to replay, just like in previous DMC games. The game's art direction was quite good, especially when you see some initial concept art they had for the series. Ninja Theory has a well-earned reputation for creating worlds that look both beautiful and unique, and DMC was no exception to this rule in various aspects. The gothic but ethereal feel of the game different from the games before, but similar in ways I can't quite put my finger on. The level designs were pretty cool, especially with the whole limbo, which made the platforming where the entire world would shift suddenly around you, and felt like the place was out to kill me when I was playing it, and it did a few times. The primitive enemy design in DMC is slightly lacking and predominantly uniform in its aesthetic. The issue with the enemy design is the overuse of humanoid concepts. DMC is a game that features otherworldly beings. It would have been nice if they had looked more otherworldly besides being deformed and grotesque. But Barbas had one of the better boss designs.
Nice.
A boss design I absolutely couldn't understand was the succubus.
What the hell is even that?
It has appeared in various stories and games in the past, so there's nothing wrong with doing something different. But I can't grasp what interpretation Ninja Theory was trying to go for with that design.
I'm confused! I'm confused right now, G.
I can't see this thing seducing me or dreams. It seems more likely to show up in my nightmares. I will say though that the weapon designs were mostly generic and not unique enough, especially compared to the weapons of older games. DMC also introduced the notable enemy name intro in Devil May Cry 5, the last enemy hits going slow-mo close-up, and the sudden environmental change. In 2013, Comic Rise released this for the DMC Devil May Cry soundtrack. I think their undisputed masterpiece is Tic Tac Got to Go Battle. The song's so catchy, most people probably don't listen to the lyrics, but they should, because it's not just random shouting, but shouting that gets you hyped up for real. It's a personal statement about the game itself. Hey Paul. Every Devil May Cry game needs a good soundtrack to make you feel like a badass fighting against demons, and this game is no exception. Say whatever about DMC, but you can't deny the soundtrack was pretty damn good. The game's heavy metal driven soundtrack was kick-ass and set the atmosphere just right, especially when combining the results of aerial combos and gaining momentum in your weapon swings and gunshots. The game mechanic of the music pumping when your style meter goes up was also incredible. They even adopted this mechanic for Devil May Cry 5.
You mean humans?
I thought we were fighting for freedom.
It was his freedom we were fighting for, not yours.
Regardless, the process behind the DMC reboot had passion, and it wasn't just a repaint of a beloved franchise. It was its own thing and actually had a lot going for it. It definitely wasn't the best, but it wasn't as bad as many people made it out to be and still do to this day. It even ranked number 30 on Capcom's list of platinum titles, selling 2.8 million units as of September 30th, 2022, if that counts for anything. Inevitably, it's brought new life into the series, considering how they reinvented the gameplay in Devil May Cry 5. Like it or not, the reboot influenced the central series in a good way, and although it was such a big deal, DMC has become a relic of times gone. Something that holds great significance, but in the end, probably meant nothing to the world. Anyway, this year's 10th anniversary, released the goddamn definitive edition for PC already, Capcom.